So, welcome back to another edition of Author Speak. My name is Caroline Bethea-Jones. I am your host for today. My co-host Renee Marshall McKinley is not with us, but I have a wonderful guest today. I have interviewing today Ambassador General Compo-Pratt, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about her, and then she's going to talk about herself and all the books that she has done and all the great things that she has done, actually, because she's done a lot of great things I see here on this paper. So I'm going to get started in reading a little bit of your bio. So Ambassador General Compo-Pratt is a teacher, artist, floral designer, writer, and poet. A language arts teacher for over 34 years, she has served as an 8th grade writing specialist and teacher of advanced language arts at her school in New Jersey. Compo-Pratt holds a BA in English and an MA in teaching English in secondary education. Ms. Pratt celebrates many years' experience in the professional network and has been noted for achievements, leadership qualities, and the credentials and successes she has accrued in her field. And I am happy to have you here with me today. There is so much more to say about you, but I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk about yourself today. So how are you?
Doing fine.
Doing fine, and I know you got your lovely daughter with you too. You want to introduce her? So,
this is my amazingly gifted and talented daughter, Lauren Ashley Pratt, who's made her mother extraordinarily proud, and she can tell you some about her achievements in the field of science. She's also a very gifted poet, very gifted short story writer, technical writer for science, and a very gifted artist. We are both fine artists, both of us.
Wow, look at all this. Welcome, Lauren. Welcome. I'm glad to have you here too. Glad to have you here too. And look at all this talent I have in the room. I absolutely love it. So I'm just going to open up the floor and I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit about your writing, since this is a podcast about writing. But we're going to talk about all the other stuff too, because I find the two of you amazing and I like to talk to amazing people. So we're going to talk about all the amazing things that you do. All right. But let's talk a little bit about your 3 books that were published by Melrose Books in the UK at the same time. Tell me about that.
What was amazing about Melrose Books, because England is the foremost producer of children's literature in the world. Okay. After my first book, BooBoo Story, was published, it went worldwide in sales, and it was originally published by Ivy House, a portion of Prentice Hall, which, as you know, has gone out of business. They went bankruptcy. So I was with them with international congresses and world forums, and Melrose Books was there. And what was interesting was 5 years after that book was published, I was invited to go to England for a ceremony where they were going to put BooBoo's Story into the permanent collection at Oxford University in its Ashmolean Library. It's a very famous library that houses probably the greatest documents in the world: papyruses, cuneiform tablets, first portfolios of Shakespeare, etc. All the great writers of the world were included in there. And when I went up for the ceremony, I was overwhelmed because there were 16 authors altogether, of which I was one, the only one for children's literature. And I had the author of the Dead Sea Scrolls sitting to my right.
Wow.
And the author of the Da Vinci Code sitting to my left.
Wow.
So I was like really impressed. The other people, I don't even remember, because I was so impressed by the two of them that I was sitting between them.
Yeah.
And they had them read excerpts from their books, and then they asked me to read the entirety of BooBoo's Story. Wow. And when I did, the reaction was amazing. They all touched their hearts, which is the effect that that book has on every child and even adults who read it. And they put it into the collection. They asked me to bring 2, and they asked the other authors to bring 2. One that was put into their permanent library, so we marched up with them in their robes and us just in our regular clothes to put it into the library's collection and to have it stamped and carded. And then the others put on the underground thing to be in the permanent collection of the Ashmolean Library. And I literally cried like a baby. They gave us certificates, and then after that, Melrose contacted me at one of the international congresses where I later came because I was going since 2006. So 2010, that book was put in. And then Melrose contacted me direct via their editor-in-chief and stated that if I had any other new books or anything in the pipeline, that they would be willing, with quotes, to take a look at it. Now, because they are foremost in children's literature, they don't look at most literature from around the world. It's mostly theirs. So I had sent back, and for an editor to contact you is almost never. You always work with underlings, and then it has to move up because they sit in editorial boards and make decisions as to whether or not they think they could sell it. And I told them I had 3, which was the 3 that you're talking about, that were ready to go, because I also illustrated them. At that point, they said to me, send all 3. Well, I was overwhelmed. All 3? I mean, you're lucky they look at one at a time, but not all 3. So then I wrote a very clever cover letter and then signed it with BooBoo's little paw. And also put in some pictures of his friends, BooBoo and Friends, from the first 2 books, and then shipped it out to them. And I was amazed that 2 weeks later, they contacted me email, and it was the editor-in-chief herself talking. And then Nicholas Law, who runs all of it, and also the International Biographical Center, he was in charge of that as well. So he said, Mrs. Pratt, he says, we're going to publish all 3 at the same time. I almost had a heart attack. That was, yeah, because usually the authors, they'll say, like, we like this one, but not this so much, or all 3. So, and that's how all 3 were published at the same time.
That's a wonderful story. I'm excited for you, and I see the excitement still on your face also. Tell us a little bit about BooBoo. I want to know about BooBoo. What some of BooBoo's experiences and what led you to write about BooBoo's experiences. So I'm sure
Okay.
my listening audience wants to know as well.
BooBoo is the most amazing creature in Jelly Dot. He's upsy-daisy. He's unique. He has special qualities and special features. But most of all, he's innocent like a little child. And he's a small little bear. He's not a grown-up. He's not a juvenile. He's a little guy. And he lives in this imaginary world called Jelly Dot, where the skies are purple, seas are made of red jelly jam. Yes, you can eat them. The trees have emeralds instead of leaves the size of your hand. And in book 1, you enter the magical world of Jelly Dot for the first time, and you meet BooBoo for the first time. And it's not a place like here in that everything is living. So the sun is living, the cloud is living, the moon's alive. Everything is not like here, is a good way to put it. And BooBoo goes on multiple adventures. And in the first book, he goes through a change in his appearance. And that appearance triggers people making fun of him. And he never had that experience before because everything in Jelly Dot is what it is. And everyone loves exactly what it is. No one looks for change. No one criticizes anything. And so when that happened to him, then he puts together his own little idea of an escape, and he's going to try to cross the Jelly Jam Sea, which no one has ever done. He puts himself together a little teacup and he uses leaves for sails, and he goes out to try to find comfort, is a good way to put it. And I'm not going to say anything else because the book teaches a story about love
I
and
can
acceptance.
see that myself, and I'm already feeling that already. And I'm pretty sure the other ones are similar to it, different experiences of BooBoo.
BooBoo goes through all kinds of adventures. In book 2, he goes on a boy with dreams. And who doesn't have dreams and nightmares? So that deals with nothing is what anything seems in a land of mist and dreams. And all the books are written in rhymes so that children can learn to read quickly. And once you can read book 1, which was designed originally for kindergarten through first grade, you can move immediately to book 2, and then book 3, book 4, book 5. And each is significantly more difficult and complex than the books before it. But there's nothing to hold back the reader from accelerating reading growth. That's how they were structured and written. Yeah. So, but with his adventures, he goes on amazing things. And in every adventure, you meet new creatures in Jelly Dot. In book 2, with the strange mist that comes out of nowhere, you meet the Professor Turtle and his family who go knocking on BooBoo's door. And you know how people just love to see how other people live. So you actually get to see BooBoo's house, the interior, what it looks like. And next thing you know, he opens the door, they come in and they fall out on his floor, and everybody goes to sleep. And he's like, what's going on? And they tell him about this strange mist, and they can't sleep, but they can sleep in his house. So finally he gets curious and he goes outside, and sure enough, he sees something looking like cotton candy all in the air. The only difference is that it gives you hallucinatory nightmares.
Ooh.
So this is also the first time you meet the rabbits, and the rabbits are unique. All the creatures in Jelly Dot are unique. Rabbits, because they live in bubbles, so they stay out of trouble. They never live on the land. And they're the experts of everything because they're suspended, so they see it all. They can go anywhere they want, whenever they want. And whenever they travel, you see Master Rabbit, who is in his little suit jacket with a gigantic top hat that says Master of this and that. And he's the one that keeps the Jelly Dot runes, the hieroglyphics of Jelly Dot. He's the all-knowing. So if you ever want to go from here to there, you must engage a hare. That's for sure. And then
Sounds like such an amazing story.
Yeah, and that's going to take him on an adventure and a half. So, and then through it, he's going to have to do some risky things and make discoveries along the way, which is the way life really is, because things that are in life you will experience, whether they are foggy days or rains or storms or problems where neighbors need help or friends need help. And that's what BooBoo stories are all about, interacting with other people and then using group intelligence, research, which you have to use with the rabbits, and then going on quests to solve problems. Problems don't solve themselves. They have to be solved. And in the midst of land that he's going to go to, he's going to meet another amazing creature. And all these creatures pop in and out of the Jelly Dot series. But this will be a dragon lion. And that's kind of interesting what he discovers through that mixture of what this creature is. So every creature has its own gifts and talents. And also in that book is a rhyme for children to say to dissipate nightmares if they're having them. That actually works. In fact, my students at school said to me, "Mrs. Pratt, how'd you come up with this?" Because I have nightmares all the time. But I wrote this down, and I say it, and they go away. And then I don't have them anymore. How'd you come up with this? And I said, actually, it's God inspired. And,
well, I was going to ask you where your inspiration came from, because I know you probably have a wonderful imagination and you probably had one as a child, but where did the inspiration come from? Was it your gorgeous daughter over here? Was she the inspiration for?
Actually, of course not.
Actually,
it's always the students.
Yeah, actually, she was
they got everything.
She was the inspiration for book 5, which is dedicated to her.
Okay, see, it's dedicated.
That book is dedicated to her because she has some very unique abilities and the gift of seeing. And that is a gift, the ability to look at something and see beyond what it seems to be on the outside.
That is a gift.
And see a deeper thing which is within, and to see goodness in all things, not just some things. As a gift she had even as a little child. And that inspired book 5, which again, I'm going to challenge people to read book 5, because book 5 is
how many books altogether?
So there's 5 of the books altogether.
Okay.
In the series.
And there's like more, like, there's potential for more. Like she's seen something she's wanted to keep going with.
Well, actually, book 6 is ready to roll.
Yeah. Okay. I really love it. This is amazing. I love it.
Book 6 is actually not written by the characters. It's written by M. Rabbit, Master Rabbit himself.
Oh. Okay.
So it's the revelation of the truths of all things, which only the rabbits really know.
Okay.
And so this book is a Jelly Dot book of wisdom, and that is prefaced by saying, this is not just true in Jelly Dot, it's true in all worlds.
Wow. See, I'm sensing from you that you have a lot of truth yourself and a lot of wisdom yourself. And this gives you an opportunity to share that wisdom with some of our younger people, because I'm pretty sure that your daughter received all of that wisdom from you, right? Because like,
He's very gifted and talented. I was reading
but
to her
you're
from the
gifted
time
and
she was
talented
born.
too. It's you gave it to
It's
her.
absolutely, well, God gave it to her, and she's
Well, God gave it to both
multi-gifted
of
and
you.
talented.
Yeah, with the writing stuff, like, like because of her, and kids can hear, like fetuses can hear, like what, like from 5 months, and she was teaching the whole time she was pregnant with me, and like English, and like as soon as I could, like she was always reading to me, and as soon as I could hold a pencil, like she was teaching me how to write, and teaching me how to write poetry, and like teaching me how to write stories, and like I've been doing that, like actually doing that since I was at least like 5 years old, and like
Exactly.
really never stopped.
Well, that's what I taught the honors students in the honors classes with advanced English. I was also teaching the history of the world from the beginning of all time up into the U.S. Constitution for sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. And I told my students I would put you against any student anywhere in the world.
Wow,
And
what
you have to meet 3 years in a
amazing.
row. And what was amazing was every single one of them, leaving my eighth grade, went directly into universities and colleges, direct from the eighth grade. They also had outstanding science teachers and mathematics teachers. And considering that I taught exclusively in the inner city schools and in the system of the Camden City public schools, which
Camden?
most
Okay.
people,
Yeah.
which most people would never have thought could compete on a national stage.
Mm-hmm.
But my students did, even from the very beginning. And when I started teaching in 1973, in fact, BooBoo's story was absolutely inspired by a class that I taught in the 1970s, to whom that book is dedicated. And it took me almost 20 years to put it into writing. It was based on actual experiences with some of the students in that class, and a child who was the first to be put in for special education who was dying of brain cancer. And he was put into one of my sections that was totally thugs out of Jamesburg, which is juvenile detention center for serious offenses.
Yes.
And it made you wonder exactly what did they do to be incarcerated that young. But I never asked what they did. I was interested in what they could do and who they could be. And halfway through that year, this young child came in who was dying. And the principal did not tell anybody in the school. It was traumatic for the child because he was one of the first being put in, and had to wear a hat. And in the inner city, you're not allowed to wear hats. So it became a problem. And I said to the principal, you need to hold a faculty meeting. You need to tell everybody what's going on and about this child that is coming to the school. And then when he told the whole faculty that he was going to die, we couldn't believe it. We said, why is he in the school? And then what are the symptoms? I mean, if he's going to die, don't you think somebody should be informed? It's hard enough watching someone you love dying that you're in their family, let alone a stranger who's being put amongst strangers to watch him die. And that really was upsetting to all of us. So we had special counseling going on. And I said, give me, and I asked the principal to put him on one of my other sections. That's before he taught honors. And he's insistent to put him in that class with the students who were on parole, actually from Jamesburg. And I said, you understand that there will be no empathy in that classroom whatsoever because of their experiences in prison. I said, that's not the class to put him in. I have 4 other sections, put him in one of those. No, he insisted to put him there. So I took the time to prepare the students prior to, and their questions were very honest. They said to me, what's wrong with his parents? Why don't they contact Michael Jackson and go down to Michael Jackson's beautiful place where he brings children who have serious illnesses and are dying, or take him to Disney? How long does he have left? They said, when's he going to kick off? And I said, no one knows, because it was operated on. He received chemo radiation, but it's not responding. So they don't know. And then the kids said, well, how are we supposed to know? They were asking honest questions. And I said, the only things that they were willing to share with us was that just before he was going to die, he would have problems hearing and then he would go blind. And the boys in my class said, what do you mean he's going to go blind? We have 4 staircases, 4 levels of floors. If he goes about on a staircase, he can fall to his death. That's insane. And their reaction was the same that the teachers had in that room, that it is insane to put a child in that situation. And then they said to me, why should he even bother if he knows that he's dying? Why should he bother to come to school? Why should he bother to do any work? What will it count? For what? And they were really serious about it. And then I had all boys in that class plus 2 girls who were like Madonnas. They were absolutely perfect. And the guy said to me, don't worry, nobody's going to bother them. Do you think everybody's going to bother them with us? And then there was a little teddy bear on my desk, which I call BooBoo, who had jointed arms and jointed legs. And those guys, those thugs, fell in love with that little bear. And this was long before Build-A-Bear ever existed. And they began to ask me if they could take him with them. Now, meanwhile, they were really paying attention in my class. I don't know about anybody else's. And they would use the bear, pass it amongst themselves to raise its little paw and stuff. And I said, well, let him whisper the answers to you, and then you tell them to me. And before long, they began to interact with me direct without the bear. They began to take him to other classes so they could stay out of trouble. Girls were never in trouble, but it was them. And this is before that special student came in. They began to make him things. They had busted all the sewing machines, so they wanted to make him clothes. And the sewing teacher contacted me and said, I'm not going to ever let them touch these machines again. I said, let me talk to them. And I said to them, you want to make clothes? They said, yes. I said, then you have to fix those machines.
And they fixed the machines.
They fixed them all. Fixed them all. And then they made clothes for him. They made all kinds of clothes for him. Again, before Build-A-Bear. Caps, shirts, pants. Then I saw hood ornaments that they were making in metal shop. And I said, that kind of looks like something that goes with a car. And they said, yeah, well, the ones that have jumped into the river right behind our school. That we went and salvaged a few. And then made chains so the bear could have one. He's living large. And they would carry him and put him inside of their pockets or pants pockets, back pockets, or in front of their shirts. And I said, you're not fearful that someone's going to say something to you? And they said, look at us. You think everybody's going to say anything to us? And to be honest with you, their physical appearance was such that if you were walking down the street and they were coming in your direction, you would cross over. You wouldn't even ask the thought of, should I stay on the same street? So they decided that they would accept him, but they would never let him carry the bear. And then later, because again, he came in February, March, end of February. He was never supposed to take Jim. And meanwhile, they had built a house for Boo in woodshop with multiple floors and an elevator that goes up and down. Boo was living large.
Wow.
They also made a doorstop that looked like Boo, front view, back view for the door. So the bear was getting them to focus on other classrooms and to pay attention and to stay out of trouble. So then this one day they were coming down the hall because they never really chummed up with him because they told me that they didn't want to get too close to someone that was going to die because it was a waste of their feelings. That's their quote. So I said to them, but what about his feelings? And they said, well, he could sit next to the girls. So I did. I sat next to the girls. The girls were wonderful and had a lot of empathy. But that's not what he wanted. And his grades were basically B+, which was pretty good for me and for all his other students, knowing that he was going to pass. And this one day they were coming down the hall and they actually had their arms around him. I was like, whoa, epiphany. And at that point, they told me he took Jim. I said, he's not supposed to take Jim. Well, he took it anyway. They're looking at me like, challenge it. And they told me that, the barrels in the gym class that used to be the trash cans? I said, yes. And they said, well, we decided to paint them as part of our project in art because they were destroying the art class too. But once BooBoo got in their lives, everything became BooBoo eyes. So they painted the trash cans with all little bears. I mean, their artistic ability was extraordinary. So, and they said, so we put him in one and we played Roll the Buddy and rolled him around on the floor and spin the buddy and But actually, the kid was smiling for the first time. And this was back at the end of April. And he made it through promotional exercises. And at that time, I was running promotion. So we wore caps and gowns. And to my surprise, they took the liners from their gowns and made a cap and gown for the little bear and made a board, and then took one tassel from each of their tassels to make one for him. And Metal Shop put the year to date on it. And which I didn't know because the bear kind of got lost while I was decorating. And I said, "Who's got the bear?" I said, "Don't worry, he's with us. He's in good hands." And so on that day, when I was calling the names with the principal, and I rehearsed the promotion, we had over 500 people in the inner city. Anytime we would do the promotional exercises, and they worked very hard so they can make it. And I was pleased to tell the principal that every single one of them in that class had really good grades. Nobody had less than a C average, which he couldn't believe. But part of that was because of this bear that they were paying attention to. And as I told them, if you get into trouble and that bear has to do detentions or gets a suspension, then you can't carry the bear anymore. So it was like, okay. So on graduation day, when I called the name of one of the students, I saw three stand up at the same time with the sick little boy in between them. And they locked arms. I thought, don't tell me he's going to die today, is the first thing that went in my mind. Because the kids knew that he would have a hearing loss, and then begin to lose sight and then become totally blind. So at that point, when I called the one name, the three of them came up. And then the one student, Tony Ayala, who the book is dedicated to, said to me, "Can you give him his at the same time as ours?" And so it was not a problem because, again, I'm running promotion and I've got all the things. So I'm handing it to the principal, and then Tony goes, "By the way, Boo already has his." And at that point, Tony's pointing to the front of his cap and gown, and there's Boo sitting right in it with his paw out, and they rolled up a diploma and put it in there with a bow. And so the little paw was out. And so he whispered and said, "Did the audience ever hear it?" "No, but he already has this." And then after the promotional exercise, I had a reception for the families and for the children because I knew that that was a very poor area of town, and most of those children would not have anything special. So I made something special for them. And then since that was the last day of school, because promotion always was on the last day of school in the inner city, they said to me, "Is it okay?" And Tony in particular said, "If I take Boo home with me." I said, "Tony, he's not your bear." And he said, "You don't understand, Mrs. Pratt." He said, "If I have Boo, I'll stay out of trouble and I won't go back to jail. But without him, I'm liable." And he didn't get past libel. And I said, "You know, I run drill team and dance club, and I'm up here all the time because they're performing." I said, if you see me on the corner selling something or doing something wrong, you'll kick my A." I said, "And I'll take Boo." He said, "You won't ever have to kick my A. I promise you that I will bring Boo. When you come to decorate for the following year at the end of August, I will be here." So then it was first week of August, huge thunderstorm, and I hear a knock on my door. And who's standing at my door but Tony in a thunderstorm, lightning everywhere. And I said to him, and I thought, don't tell me somebody got killed. I'm always thinking somebody got killed, they got shot, somebody's back to jail. And that's a long walk. You're looking at 6 miles walking from where the school was to where I currently live. So I knew that whatever it was important, that he had come so far. And I asked him to come in out of the storm. And he said no, that he didn't want to trouble my house, but that we could go across the street in the park at the gazebo in this lightning storm so that he could tell me why he came. So we did. We went across the street, and then he told me that the little boy died just 2 weeks prior. And I said, "Why didn't you call me?" because they had my phone number and they had the principals. So if they did get rearrested, then we could go in there and bail them out. I'm serious with you. And fortunately, they didn't. And the probation officer was very pleased that they were all doing so well and their grades are so well. And they said, whatever magic you're working at that school, keep working it. So he told me that everyone got dressed, that he was laid out in his church, and that the girls wore dresses and the guys all wore suits. I thought, oh my God, them wearing suits? That was fresh. And he told me, and I made a suit for Boo. And then he told me that when he went in to say their final last respects, that he saw the young man laying there. He said, and I thought to myself how we never, ever let him hold Boo because we didn't want him to put death on the bear. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, he had no joy in life. He had such a short life. And then I said to myself, he cannot go to face Jesus by himself that way. He said, and then Mrs. Pratt, I put the bear in his hands. And then he says, are you mad at me? And he started to cry. And I said, why would I be mad at you? He said, look, you're crying. That's why we invite you to this funeral, because we knew you'd be crying. And I said, but what you did is an act of love. Mm. And he said, are you mad because I gave you my word? And if I give you my word, I stand on my word that bear would be with you at the end of August. And I can't do it because I put it in the coffin with him. And I violated my word. I threw my arms around him. I said, Tony, you didn't violate a thing. Mm. I said, you are what Boo is all about, which is love. And that was what later inspired that book, some 20 years later, and the designing of the characters, etc. And the book deals with love. And anytime anyone reads it, that's the reaction that they get, even older students. And it had been published because it was published in 2005. It took how many years before I actually got it written, got it published. Well, that was through Ivy House Prentice Hall Division here in the United States. And again, it was dedicated to him. So the amazing part was, several years later, Tony had kept in touch with me all through his high school. Mm-hmm. And he was going to drop out in his senior year with a B average. And he came to see me. I said, oh, no, you're not. And I took a book and chased him around the room and he beat the heck out of his shoulders. I said, nobody quits in senior high in senior with a B plus average. Even if you had all Fs, I tell you to go to summer school. Mm-hmm. And so he said, I don't need it. He said, what am I going to do with that kind of education? I said, you will be able to get a good job. And he did quit for a while, but I did not know that. And some years later, in fact, the same year Boo was published, I got a call and at home during Thanksgiving. And my daughter was small already. I was already married. And it was him on the phone. And he said, do you remember me? Of course, I would never forget the voice. I said, yes, Sonny, I remember you. He said, I'm glad you still have the same phone number. He said, because I'm sitting at my table with my wife and my two children, my two daughters, and I'm giving thanks. And I thought there's only one person I need to thank beside God, and it's you. Because if it wasn't for you, I've been back in jail. If it wasn't for that little bear, all of us would have been back in jail. He said, so I want to say thank you. And it's just amazing how those things came together in that way. Yeah. And my students, after the publication, I would have it, again, always teaching 8th grade, I would have it on display in the room. And sometimes kids would come up early in the morning. And this was now in another school, because I've been transferred to another. That they would say, can I read that book? And here we're reading Steinbeck and we're reading, Longfellow, and we're reading heavy duty literature. And I would say to them, I put it on for display so you could see. And they said, but I want to read that. So they would read it and hold it against their heart and say, thank you, I needed that. They would come up at lunch and ask to read the book. They would come after school and read the book. I'm having a hard day, I need to read that book. And then when I did book 2, the same thing, but always the book 1 being read. And they said, you don't know, it makes my heart happy. And that was the reaction that was given at Oxford amongst all those very high-level authors. Yeah. The look on their faces was the same. So it had that. And all of the books in the Jelly Dot series has complete plot elements, character roles, themes, because no matter how young you are, life has a meaning,
Yeah.
and everything is based on that. So you can start teaching elements of literature right from start. And I gave demonstration lessons in many elementary schools in the state of New Jersey, especially the northern part, where principals would invite me back. Kids would be hanging out the window. It's BooBoo's mom coming up the street. BooBoo's going to be coming. But the Boo that I have now is not that original one, and that's where the original is in the coffin. But it served its purpose, which was to teach love
Yes.
and to
Thank you
heal.
so much for telling that story. What a beautiful adventure. And what a beautiful inspiration for you to write your books. I literally now have to buy all 5 of them. The 5th one is ready, right? The 5th one is done.
Well, all
Yeah.
five are done and
All
ready.
5
All
are
five are
done.
done.
I
It's only the sixth one that's waiting publication because that's the one written by M. Rabbit that's true in
Okay.
all worlds.
All right. Oh my God, that is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that entire story. It was worth the whole entire story because now I understand. I understand why Boo Boo needed to be written. I do. Thank
See,
you.
this was the whole point because it kept in
Yes.
my mind, in my mind, in my mind. And the students in one of the other sections romanticized him as well,
Mm-hmm.
but not the effect he had on them. With the castle, Boo Boo's house, Boo Boo's doorstop, the Boo Boo's clothes, and he had a wardrobe. He had a complete wardrobe, which kept them from messing up stuff in the sewing class. But they really sewed well, and later they inspired me to do puppet theater, and I had them create puppets of which I had made the pieces, and they gave up their lunches to come and sew puppets but Boo Boo had to be with them. And
Yeah.
when we took California Skills and Basic Test, which was the key test back in the day, I brought in stuffed animals from home.
Mm-hmm.
And I told them, because they were in my homeroom, I say, everybody get your buddy. You're not taking this test by yourself. And I thought, if anybody comes by this room and see these thugs who look like thugs with these stuffed animals, but again, because of how they look, nobody would challenge them as to what they were doing with one. I'll tell you already. Nobody would say, what are you doing with that big duck? It would never happen. It would
Right.
never happen. And then they would pass Boo around. So I said, so you have a confidant that you could take the test with. And when we took our break to go to the bathroom, the principal was coming down the hall and they said, you need to get in there, man. They're ripping it apart. They're ripping that room apart. So of course he goes running in my classroom and they've got all of the stuffed animals sitting with the pencils in hand by the closed books while they're, and he goes, what's going on in there? And I said, they're going to have the highest scores in the district. And he said, get out of here, Pratt. And sure enough, who had the highest scores? They did. And with their puppet theater, they did such a great job. Not only did they make the puppets, they built a theater and they had curtains that went up and down. And they used my little tape machine to make sound effects and built furniture. Now, my other classes did great jobs, but not like them. They went above and beyond. So I actually took them to hospitals to put on their puppet shows. That's how good
Okay.
theirs was, working with dialogue and things like that. So it really changed their lives for the better. And one of the students for that class became a criminal attorney, above all things. But
Wow.
yeah, a criminal attorney who I ran into at Rutgers University in Camden while he was then studying law. And he said to me, "Do you remember me? I was a student that threatened you on day one
Oh.
and told you that you just had to slide us by, just give us a passing grade, not ask us to do any work." He said, do you remember what you said? I said, yeah, you threatened me in front of all those listeners. I asked how many people were witnesses, and he said, and every hand went up. And what did I tell you? He said, you told me that it was time that if I was thinking that way, that I would need to become an attorney to defend myself.
Wow.
Because he actually took out a roll of money. He was selling narcotics. And he said, I have more money in my pocket than you make in a month. And I said, that's why you need to be an attorney for
Wow.
criminal attorney. But they all went on to do great things. So I was very proud of them. So it just goes to show what one little bear can do. And
No,
that's why
it goes to show what one fearless, brave woman can do.
That too.
And that would be you.
That too. And yeah, that's
But
it.
that is
Yeah.
something that kind of like echoes through, like that is very to me like interesting and like important, like notable about the first book and the series itself is like, and you hear it come through the story, this whole story as well, is that like this idea that a lot of people I feel like don't really hold close that even younger children, like children on like the first book reading level, which like now would probably be like like 3 to like
Okay.
5 or 6, you know what I mean, like that they aren't capable of understanding, that they aren't capable of like reading complex things or understanding complex ideas or like being able to learn certain things or understand certain things. And the series itself and each book in itself as well, like it they are tools for like learning to read and learning how to like not just read but like read critically and analytically. And and then also like the series itself, like it's a whole world, so like it drives you to find out more about this thing, like an introduction to research almost. And like and it's just this idea, and they get progressively harder, things like that. So it's like as you want to explore this world more, as your skills are building, like as a young child, like the books are helping you, like maybe without even you realizing, they're helping you like be able to go out and read more things, find out more things, think critically about more things, and like that's really amazing, like how that concept in itself is like tangled up in the original inspiration as
I
well.
love it. I
And,
absolutely love it. I
and,
am
and
so inspired by the two of you. I'm inspired by you.
Caroline, every single book, a child gets a bear of their choice.
I
And
know you said that.
and
I think that's
and
amazing. With
my daughter
whose
got a
idea
kick
was
out of
that?
it, mine, because
Oh,
every child deserves a bear. And the change that made in them when they had the little bear, and how different one carried it every day, but
mhm.
in their pockets. I mean, they would come in the morning and put nunchucks, brass knuckles, and weapons in my desk drawer because I told them you don't need it here.
Okay.
And then they
I
would pick
love
up the
that
bear.
concept. I
Yeah,
really do. I love
but
it.
it's interesting. And Lawrence saw it in action with a 2-year-old little girl who was on a stroller with her mom, and the mother decided to buy her book one.
Hmm.
And I asked her to pick her bear, and she picked this little pink bear because kids always give it the kid test,
Hmm.
and they squeeze them, they go nose to nose with it, eyeball to eyeball, they put it on their
On their
shoulder, they
shoulder.
pet it. It's
Yeah.
interesting to watch. No matter how old they are, they do the same thing.
Yeah.
And the minute she got the pink bear, she clutched it to herself and wouldn't let go, which was very interesting, the reaction of that. So they came back to see me the second day of the convention on the 7th, and she was holding the bear, same thing, to her heart. And they told me they had read her the story and that she had them read it 3 or 4 times
Oh.
and would not let go of the bear, and even now would not let go of the bear. And so then she came up to me and she said, "Boo, I love
Oh.
Boo. I
Oh.
love it." Yeah. So it's the reaction that comes with that particular bear. And in that first book, the ending to it is heart touching because it shows you the power of love, which is
Okay.
what happened with the funeral, etc.,
Yeah.
was the power of love. And that book focuses on that. But every book focuses on real themes and the fact that sometimes you have to find courage within yourself
Hmm.
to face problems, and other times you have to face it for those who can't.
Yes.
So it's very interesting in the series because Boo at one point has to risk his little self when he's with Dragon Lion, who's capable of almost anything, and they go on a quest to try to save a baby star that falls from heaven.
Mm.
And all the creatures, this is another book altogether. So this is BooBoo in the Valley of Secrets. And it's the first of the more sophisticated books with the
Okay. Good.
harder
Higher
themes.
one.
And yeah, with deals with where you're going to have to face sometimes things in life that you're not going to expect. And you have to make a decision. Is
Hmm.
it worth it? And in that book, he's going to have to go to uh, the mountains of doom. He's going to have to go through a cave of fear. He's going to have to go into a valley of secrets in order to save a little star's life. And he's the only one who can fit. And he brought Dragonline with the intent that Dragonline could do anything, so he could take it on. But when he was the only one that could fit, then it becomes something else. And
Right, and that's a cool extrapolation for like the physical bears, like getting a bear with every book and stuff like that. Like, right, like this, like even from the story and from this idea of like, conquering these real themes, dealing with these real themes, like even as like a younger kid, like having this like physical representation in your life of that bravery, of that love, of that purpose, like just something to remind you, like just like those kids did in the school. So it's important, and it's very interesting, like that connection that kids have with the bears in the book, and like just to have something special and to have something that like relates to something that is giving so strongly like this message of like empowerment and learning and love and purpose and guidance. Like that's really cool.
And the little bear in their
Lauren,
hands.
I'm sorry, Lauren, just real quick, because you grew up with these stories, how did you approach them, each of them, as you were growing up? I'm pretty sure you had access to these stories as well. Did it have an impact
No,
in your life?
she didn't really write them until I was like maybe in middle school.
Okay, but
Yeah,
she may not have written them, but she lived these stories before they came on paper, and I'm sure that they were used even before they were printed as a method to helping you to grow. Would you say that's correct? That the stories itself were used
in a way
growing up.
Well, I was always reading her books and dramatizing them, and we would act out a lot of stories. And she always had, again, stuffed animals that she loved.
Wasn't a bear person though. It was never a bear person.
Oh, you were never a bear person?
No, I was a tiger person. I'm a cat person.
Yeah, she had tigers.
Maybe she can write. Maybe she is there a tiger in the BooBoo story?
There is actually in the third book, right?
Yeah, okay. BooBoo meets Tiger Too-Tall.
Yes,
who's a adorable little cat that lives in Pussy Willow Downs. And he's actually a part of the Pussy Willow Bush. And my kids at school, when they read that book, they said to me, I knew it. I knew it. I always believed that there were cats in that bush because of the way it feels when you touch those little pussy willow stems. And they said somehow they disappear, and then you get this green twig comes out. But they were convinced. But that's a very interesting book because
I'm sure it was inspired by Lauren, right? Lauren's love of tigers.
Absolutely. That's how that character came to become a part of that book. And the fact that he had to be taught a lesson about.
Yeah, right. I'm pretty sure it probably was, it almost definitely was me, like being mad that there was no cat person representation as of yet. I don't like what about tigers? Like
yes, we have to put them in there because that's what
we got somehow just sneak it in like and with the Pussy Willows, it's perfect. Because we're Russian Orthodox, and like for our Palm Sunday, instead of palms, we use Pussy Willows because
I wasn't aware.
In that region, most people aren't. Most people have no idea what Eastern Orthodoxy is, but like in that region, those are actually the first like spring plants.
Okay,
Pussy Willows. So there's that strong, and of course, like I've always loved them. Like what kid doesn't love Pussy Willows? Like they're magical and awesome and fuzzy. Like come on, like that's crazy. Like a fuzzy plant.
I don't see them anymore. I used to when I was a kid. I used to see them all the time. I don't see them anymore.
Right. People don't grow them as much. Like you don't see like the bushes and stuff like just like around the block or something. Right. Yeah. So So of course, like I love Pussy Willows. I love tigers. And then like there's a tiger that lives in a Pussy Willow bush and like it's too big. Like so he falls out of the little fuzzy bud. Like it was perfect.
And
Perfect. Beautiful.
that's a lesson in self-love. And BooBoo demonstrates some of his special skills and abilities to the little tiger, who then says, "But you're special. You can do all these wonderful things." And then BooBoo gives him the sense of who he is as
Yeah.
a person, and then makes him a little tiger's banner to wear around his neck, which comes from that original chain that the kids made for BooBoo way back. So he makes him one of those, and then he tells them, that because they try to get him back in. It's not like they don't try, but he's too big. He's outgrown his babyhood, you see.
Yeah.
And then he teaches him the self-acceptance and to find what's special about yourself, and that no one's more special than you.
So then maybe that's a little secret mom thing you put in there when you was
That's what I'm
writing it. Right, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's genius because you are genius.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad we met, Caroline. Nothing
All right.
ever happens by chance.
No,
God has his own way of
I
bringing people
totally
together.
agree. I
Yeah.
totally agree. So we're at the end of our hour, but before we let go of this conversation, which I am enjoying immensely, can you tell us where we can purchase your books?
Right now, because both of the publishing houses have gone into bankruptcy. Ivy House was first, along with Prentice Hall. As you know, the whole of Prentice Hall collapsed this year. Melrose Books in England, which was in existence for over 100 and some years, went bankrupt in 2020. And so they filed for bankruptcy.
Yeah, so right now it would pretty much be by like direct order. From contact by email. Yeah, we're working on like developing an online presence and like a site and stuff, and maybe working with someone to get like digital purchases up, like for like ebooks and things.
Like a print on demand or something. But
so that's coming. But
but I have plenty of stuff.
Yeah, but right now, if you contact her by email, we can send hard copies out.
So the email that I have for you right now, or is there a special email? Okay, I'll make sure that that's the comment.
Melrose Books in England, because they were part of the International Biographical Center and all of the other things, helped me to grow as an individual, because once I went to the international congresses and the world forums, I was rubbing elbows with some of the greatest professors and educators in the whole world, not to mention royalty, princes, kings, queens, all the Nobel laureates of every single year from all around the world. So it really expanded who I was as a person, and it opened up a tremendous amount of opportunity. The awards that you read in my bio, that was the early bio off of the very first book. There are 35 major awards in the field of education that I currently have, including Great Women of the 21st Century, Great Women of the Hall of Fame in the 21st Century. So when you think that I grew up in the city of Camden myself and was a student in the city of Camden and taught there for 39 and a half years before retirement, I think Camden did a very good job.
I do too. Can we talk about you being an ambassador? Tell us about that. Ambassador General, how, know?
Well, I was asked to go to the International Congress in 2005. And at that point, it was being held, because it's held all over the world, in Hawaii. And I didn't know how I would ever get the resources. So I started saving. And then they asked me the following year in 2006. And at that time, I went. And my first Congress was amazing because it was in Oxford, England. And I had a chance to interact with all these people. And in my very first Congress, because I had a background in literature and all of the awards I had previously won through the State Department and through actually Washington, D.C., because I had already gotten awards as early as 1978 from Washington for my work with inner city students. And not that I was looking for awards, I was looking for my students to excel, which they did, and they won a lot of awards. But in the interim, I was winning them too. So they asked if I would do live interviews with some of the members that they had invited. And so I would meet with them for about 10, 15 minutes, and I did live for the BBC. And after my first interaction, then they extended to me an ambassadorship. And Lauren at the time said, "Mommy, you better take it, because if you don't take it, you're the first choice. They're going to give this to somebody else."
Absolutely. Good job, Lauren.
Yeah, good luck.
I
The
don't
judge is right.
recall saying
So,
that.
so I accepted it, and then I received the actual official ambassador documents the following year in the next Congress, which is raised seals,
Hmm.
etc. And it was given as a result of my interactions with others, but also research, 30 years of research into my life and my work with students and my achievements. It's not given lightly. And then
No.
also through the UCC, it was extended as Ambassador General through the UCC, through the auspices of the United Nations. So this is a lifetime appointment. It's not just a
Right.
one-time appointment,
Right.
which was amazing. And when I came home from that, I was whisked away on a program, and I had a chance to see things that nobody else would ever have been able to see unless you were an ambassador. And the same thing, once we became ambassador generals, including other people, we were privy to a lot of things that other people were not privy to. And like, for instance, I was taken to underground combat systems here in the state of New Jersey that I didn't even know existed, and for their plans for Mars and stuff. And this is way back in 2006.
Okay.
So it was amazing the stuff that I was made privy to. Um,
I'm
just
sure we can have great conversations,
Yes, we
you and
can.
I.
Yes, we can. But yeah, and then it went on to other honors, and then to University of Cambridge, I received an honorary doctorate as well. And then the Who's Who, Marquise Who's Who,
Yeah.
inducted me into the Hall of Fame for and then did a whole special thing on me. But then when they put me into the Great Women of the 21st Century Hall of Fame, for which I have a plaque, and then the Great Women first, and then Hall of Fame afterwards. And then when you open the book and you see me in there, and Mother Teresa's in there, the Queens are in there, it's so humbling because of my poor roots. Who would ever thought that a child from Camden could ever have one day become what I've become today? And it's really humbling even to me very much
I mean,
now.
you seem very humble right now, but you also seem like a very extraordinary woman. And I
Thank you. So are
can
you, Caroline. I'm so
just
glad
sitting
that we met.
here listening to you, you are an extraordinary woman and you deserve every single bit of the accolades. And I
Thank
want to
you.
thank you for allowing me to interview you and your daughter. She's lovely. And
She's my gift from God. She's a real treasure.
yeah,
Real treasure.
she's probably a gift to a lot of people. She looks as
Yes,
though.
she is.
Yeah.
Yes, she is. She's
Yeah.
she's tremendously gifted.
Yeah. I want to thank Lauren. We didn't get a chance to talk a little bit about you.
Oh,
For
I know.
so for the next 5 minutes,
Oh, okay.
can it be all about Lauren? Can
Absolutely.
Oh yes, exactly my favorite. So what do you want to know? I
you
like
what do you want to tell us? What do you want to share? I want to know about your brilliance. So share
oh the
the
brilliance. Wow.
brilliance.
Um well, I guess on the end of the literary thing, like writing, like I said, I've been doing that all my life. And right now, like what I've most focused on is like lyrics and songwriting.
Mhm.
And then I've been doing that for years. And that came through like the poetry, which
Yeah.
was, always my favorite. And it was just interesting the course of like, you know, always being good at reading and writing and critical analytical skills and things like that, like, and just kind of like the course of like what I found to speak to me most. And like, so for years I've been working on the poetry and stuff, and obviously with mom's help, reading my stuff and critiquing it and giving me pointers and things, and then me like being inspired by other famous writers and things like that, and then other peers that wrote and things that you would like, other poetry books and stuff. And then from there, lyrics. And it's crazy because from just doing it, starting writing poetry, in elementary school,
Yeah.
like, and since then, like, yeah, I've had things published, I've won contests, things like that. But like, starting there, like I wrote my own little, oh my God, I wrote my like own little like gossip rag newspaper in middle school. And it was so popular, it was so hot, and then they wanted to censor me, like the school, like, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm not doing it then. But anyway, but like, going from starting writing like very young, writing the poetry very young, and then having that kind of like go towards lyrics and stuff, I wouldn't have even considered myself like decent at like songwriting until like I don't even like 6 years ago, maybe, like when I was in grad school. And that's crazy, you know what I mean? That's crazy to say, like that it really takes that long, but it really does, because it is an art, and you have to,
Yeah.
everything takes practice. And something, I have other friends that are like long form writers, and my partner is like a very good like storyteller and things like that. And like, because it's funny now, because like since I've been training myself all these years, like literally to say as much as possible with as few words as possible, like when I'm writing. And that comes from something she told me like way back when in one of my poems, and like now, like trying to write a story, like, oh boy, like it's just so tedious. Like I'm more of a storyboard kind of person. Like absolutely, like I can like give you the whole, like the big, moves and moments, but like when we're doing the dialogue and all the descriptions, and we gotta like tie it all back in, and it's 100 pages, like it's like whoo. And like but in that, like going into like the like my professional aspect of my life, like because I'm a neuroscientist. So throughout college and grad school, it's a lot about reading and writing grants and these primary source like research papers and review papers. And what you find when you go through that scientific and medical literature, more so scientific than anything really specifically, is that like a lot of people really don't know how to write. And even people that like do it, it's very esoteric, it's very rambling, it's very jargony, like, and in that the meaning gets lost. So in my writing, in the technical realm, like, and I've worked in corporate too, so like even in the corporate realm, like in my writing, it comes back down to trying to communicate as effectively and efficiently as possible.
Yeah.
And also, and specifically, like my personal mission within the sciences is to like make the sciences more accessible and understandable to a larger group of people. Because like when you remove, when you remove the 10 pages that don't need to be there, and you remove all the jargon, and you make the flow better, and like you don't just like abbreviate everything and things like that, or use these technical terms that people have to keep looking back through your 20-page paper. It makes it easier to digest, it makes it easier to understand, it makes it more accessible. And like the most important thing, if as a researcher, as a doctor, as anything, is you want people to know what you're doing, and know where you're coming from, what you're trying to say, where you're trying to go. And that is what needs to be communicated, and that makes that communication more effective. And it's all because of the beginnings here with Miss English teacher extraordinaire over here.
Yes. I understood all that you said. And Lauren, we have so much in common, because I'm also a poet. I started writing poetry in elementary school, even before I even got to elementary school, really. Poetry, journaling. I'm a songwriter too, so I wrote. Yeah, we got so much in common. But I also understand what you're talking about between the two sets of writing, because when I was writing my dissertation paper for my doctorate, it's a different type of writing.
Yes.
So, and I've also written several novels, so it's a different type of writing. And so you're kind of to be able to do all of the forms, to be able to write the poetry, to write the songs, to write in the journal, to write the novels, and then to write a dissertation paper. That's a whole lot of understanding of the English language. So the way words are written and dissected. So this is the reason why
and understood. Like that's important too, right?
Yes,
because that's something I think about a lot with the songwriting. Like, oh my gosh, like because at this point, like that's been like the focus in like my personal life. So like, one of the major things, like somebody asked for like some advice for song, like how to finish a song online, and like the thing I told them was, ask yourself if if there's anything about the music, lyrics, or vocal performance that could better convey what you're trying to say, and is it coming from a real place? Those are two things I told him. But like outside of that, like my other things is that like you need to think about who your audience is and like how specific that audience is, because especially when we're talking about music, if you want to have like any kind of like, don't forget success, because that's just like a whole, but like if you want to have any kind of like traction, if you want to have any kind of relatability, like, you know, go up at an open mic night and have people like, you know, actually like enjoy what you're doing, like your audience has to be broad. So like if you're writing about something that's too niche or like too personal, like it's like it's not going to work. But it's not that you can't write about those things, it's that you have to write about it and express it in a way that is relatable to a larger group of people.
Yep, absolutely. And thank you for sharing your brilliance.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you so much.
I enjoyed you both so much. I really have enjoyed both of you, and I wish you so much success. And I want you to stay in touch with me to let me know about the 6th book, because I'm going to be sending you an email about 5 books.
Yeah, because the 6th book, I've been waiting for the publishing of that simply because of everything being shaken out in 2021. With the collapse of so many publishing houses, the collapse of so much where you would invest things, and now almost everything is self-publishing. And it's online.
I'm sorry, I'm guilty of that. I'm a self-published author, so I understand that. So, but that's what everything is in the music industry as well.
Right.
You know, so all of the industries are changing, and we have to learn how to make adjustments to the changing world. That we are all a part of. But again, I want to thank you both for coming. You were listening to Real Talk with Real People, a candid conversation with Caroline Bethea-Jones. And this is my podcast, Author Speak. And my guest today, I'm going to get her name right, is Ambassador General Compo-Pratt and her lovely daughter, Lauren. And I am so grateful to have them both here today. So if you are interested in becoming part of this program, send me an email. And in the tagline, I'm going to give you the information how you can enjoy the books that Miss Pratt has written. And they are 5 books starring BooBoo. And we're going to talk about BooBoo's story in all 5 of them. But let me just tell you, that is part of the Jelly Dot series of books. And BooBoo is featured in every single one of them. And I'm going to give you the information so that you can get your books as well. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Author Speak. And I'll be back next month with another author.